Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. For many years now, Chelsea have been underperforming domestically in English football. In fact, since 2018, long has the culture of winning left Chelsea domestically. Of course, we've won the Champions League with Thomas Tuchel, but I'll get into that later in this video, how I feel that was perhaps papering over cracks that have long been here at Chelsea Football Club. That has not just been this ownership, it's been years prior, at the end of course, Roman Abramovich's tenure as the Chelsea owner. We're going to get into it today. We're going to get into the Chelsea players, the sporting directors, the management, the owners, and indeed a long-standing problem of Chelsea, how we're sort of a shadow of our former selves. Of course, the golden generation, the Lampard, JTs, Drogba's, Czechs, and sort of how that bridged kind of into the Eden Hazard and Kante era. But of course, the last Premier League win we had, JT was still in the dressing room. And that was in 2017, which was 7 years ago now. We got problems, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I'm not in the studio today. I'm still at my desk in my living room. You know what, man? I did film in the office, in the little studio. And I was going to edit it all. And I filmed like freaking half an hour of raw footage. But I thought, you know what? I just want to speak sitting down, more honestly, direct. I love doing videos in the office like that, and I will of course do it every day and continue. But this is an opportunity where I wanted to just sit and really assert all my thoughts on a long-standing problem at Chelsea. Look, make no bones about it, these Chelsea young players missed a huge, potent opportunity against Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. And yes, the headlines of Gary Neville's words are ringing all around football media. Klopp's kids defeat the blue billion-pound bottlers. And in many ways, it was a great line, and it's true. It's a demonstration of the winning culture that's been cultivated top to bottom at Liverpool of late. One that we used to have, and one that's just absent now. Of course, the pressure was on the Chelsea players when those infants came off the bench. They didn't have the pressure, and they knew they had to win, and they should win, the Chelsea players, and they proved they couldn't do it. Now, this was an entirely different starting 11 than the last final we lost against Liverpool, so this could be the first final defeat that many of these players experience, and hopefully they learn from it rather than becoming it, if that makes sense. We are going to talk about it today. I'm not going to speak about the game in detail at all. The final yesterday that we lost, I've already done that on a complete breakdown, and you're welcome to go check that out if you want to. Yeah, man, thank you for joining me. If you do want to support the content, you're welcome to. You simply like the video, drop a like, subscribe, maybe share if you really do want to help me out. That's really very kind of you, but let's get into it. So like I said, Chelsea have a long-standing problem with domestic football. If you want to win, if you want to be the best, the Premier League is by far and away the best league in the world. I'm sorry, it's not even up for debate. Even the greatest footballing institutions could get touched up by Bournemouth on a bad day. This is just where we are. It's an excellent league. The high quality players, high wages, super managers that can come in, and coaches. It's just where we are now. And to demonstrate your true greatness, and that should be Chelsea's long-standing ambition, you've got to win the league titles. And of course, we did that really convincingly under Antonio Conte. We still had, JT in the dressing room, Hazard and Kante, and truly unique players. But even that was like a sort of bridge and sort of leeching off the golden generation. It was just sort of after, and, it was still holding on to mercenary Galacticos in many ways. It just wasn't, it wasn't like, the Lampard and Drogba Chelsea. You know what I mean? That Chelsea that was always titans. They were always good. It was like, okay, we won it. So we won league titles after them. We won the 2015, we won the 2017. But it just faded away when JT left the dressing room, when Steve Holland left the management. When Emanalo, the sporting director, left, and more on him in a bit. I think he was really important, and more on sporting directors in a bit, I should say. We've lost the juice. We've lost the Chelsea juice. And we've basically descended into a relatively inevitable state of mediocrity, I feel like. And long have we needed a hard reset. And I guess that's what's being attempted to happen at Chelsea now. So we lost 6 consecutive finals, 3 under the new ownership, Todd Boehly and Clearlake Capital, and they were frustratingly, annoyingly, they're all against Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, and they're all really close, which makes it kind of more painful. And then the 3 before were under Roman Abramovich. Of course, it was Maurizio Sarri. We lost to a shootout against Pep's Man City. I was there when Kepa, didn't come off, and then we lost. Frank Lampard against Arsenal in the FA Cup, and that was pre-VAR, wasn't it? So that's when Kovacic got fouled and got sent off, and that's also when Pulisic scored. And then as well, it's Leicester City in the FA Cup final with Tuchel, and we were massive favourites for that. Of course, it was the Tielemans long shot, and they won. And going into that Champions League final, we were like, well, we're definitely going to lose. We were not only in really poor form in the league, we just bottled the FA Cup final that we were massively supposed to win. And that was the 3 under Roman Abramovich. And of course, like I said, we lost 3 and the new owners as well against Liverpool. Now, I think Chelsea have been underperforming domestically for a long time. Performing domestically in your league is very, very different than the Champions League. It's a different vibe. It's a different style of football. It's a different... your bread and butter in a league is like you go, right, we play at home and away every week. This is how I live in this league, in this country, in this style, and you get settled into it. And then the Champions League's different. And football-wise, stylistically, it is often different as well. Now, Chelsea winning that was absolutely incredible. Under Thomas Tuchel it was. And it was a deserved win. If you look at that campaign, start to finish... and the knockouts, we won on XG every single game. We won against really difficult opposition. Atletico Madrid, that either were champions or would go on to be champions. Real Madrid, of course, they are the kings of the Champions League, and beating the Man City in the final when we were absolutely outsiders and underdogs. But we beat them on XG that day as well. By the way, it's not like we were getting. It wasn't a smash and grab. Is what I'm trying to say in that final. We deserved it. But I do think that was like, oh yeah, Chelsea are just a big inevitable club and they win. But it wasn't a reflection of what's happening. I feel like for a long, long time I've been unsettled. And I'd been saying for years that Chelsea need to run themselves like a proper top club, like the European top clubs do. We need a structure. We need a hierarchy. I wanted a football director for ages, or a sporting director, or a technical director. I feel like although he was a divisive figure, Michael Emenalo, we lost a lot when he left. Conte would tell you as much as well. Of course, he left, and Steve Holland left, and we went from title winners to whatever that follows. Granted, Conte threw his toys out the pram big time, but still. Look. Under Roman Abramovich, we were being ran like an unsustainable entity financially and structurally as well. And the new profit and sustainability rules, the revamped UEFA financial fair play rules, you can't do that anymore. You've got to run yourself sensibly and structured well. Something that I've been calling out for a long time. And in theory, this is what's being done at Chelsea now. Sporting directors, no longer signing aging mercenaries on short, high-wage contracts. Especially because we still tried that and we weren't winning doing that anymore. Right, buy young players, put them on long contracts, low wages, and incentive-based targets so they can earn money if they perform. And every Chelsea fan would agree with that in theory. It's like sensible business. And like it's here all is good, but what is not good is being crap, And like... Maybe in the group of the ownership model and the consortium that purchased Chelsea, they sat down and went, right, let's look at Chelsea. Well, we did recently win the Champions League, but we've been off it in the Premier League since they've won it. What's the kind of players coming in and out? What's the current trend of what works? The big successful teams around Europe. How can we make this work? So maybe they just thought Chelsea does need a hard reset. The original transfer window of signing Koulibaly, Cucurella, Aubameyang and Raheem Sterling was a mistake. So let's talk about the mistakes in the new Chelsea ownership and the new tenure of Boehly Clearlake, excuse me. So let's talk about that first transfer window before they got the sporting directors in and before they started doing Project 2030. Right, we'll carry on doing what Chelsea do, buy high value players and put them on high wages. And of course, Tuchel apparently had to be sacked. I'm not going to go over that again, but some stuff went on. He had to go. But before that happened, they were like, right, we're going to back Tuchel. And the new owner said to Thomas Tuchel, right, who's your primary target? And Tuchel said Raheem Sterling. He wanted Raheem Sterling above everyone else. He said it maybe in 4 interviews in that preseason. Like, he just wanted Raheem. And I get it. Like, you can not like Sterling and you can say, we shouldn't have signed him. And I do think I like Sterling, but I think in hindsight it was a mistake, especially on massive wages and also him just not being the right profile to lead us into glory at the moment. But I kind of get it looking at his consistent goal return at City and his fitness record. And I can understand why Thomas Tuchel went, bring me Raheem Sterling as a sort of, a consistent goal scorer. But that was a mistake, and that's on Tuchel. I understand it. But also, we signed Aubameyang. Again, Tuchel wanted Aubameyang because of Dortmund, the Dortmund connection. But I'm not digging out Tuchel here. The owners asked him, who do you want? And he told them. But there were these senior players. Koulibaly was a little bit of he's a European great, we might as well. And, he lasted 1 season before going to Saudi Arabia. Do you know what I mean? So this is where we're at here. That transfer window was a mistake. And they obviously drew a line under that and goes, right, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do a long-term plan. We're going to buy young talent and, we're going to make this work. And so far, it hasn't worked. I mean, we've been... we can talk about good signings. Cole Palmer, Gusto, maybe Noni Madueke. Jury's... Although the jury's out on Mudryk, but I saw that... I posted on my Instagram that goal he scored in pre-season with Jackson. There's such a talent in there, Mudryk. We just don't know. Of course, the midfielders, the expensive midfielders... they're certainly high-value purchases, but they're young and on low wages, so they're different from, your Aubameyangs and Sterlings in that sense. But they drew a line under that first transfer and said, right, mistake. What are the other mistakes then? Hiring Graham Potter. Again, this is with the benefit of hindsight. For me, it's much like Raheem Sterling. Hindsight's 2020. So... Graham Potter, the media liked the appointment at Chelsea of Graham Potter because it was a young English manager trending upwards. It's very un-Roman Abramovich, do you know what I mean? But ultimately, the ownership, the sporting directors learned that though a good coach, he remains a good coach, Graham Potter, you need to be a certain figure it's kind of unquantifiable a little bit, but you need to have this certain, here comes that word, aura, to manage a big club like Chelsea. And Potter didn't have it. He was worried about if the players liked him or not. So you'd have to say Graham Potter as a whole was a mistake, and he was an expensive one as well, sacking. Even though he took a reduction because he was agreeable with the sacking, it was because he's a nice guy. A proper Chelsea manager wouldn't have done that. They would have rinsed us dry. You know what I mean? So, him, expensive, second stuff. Also, that January transfer window just over a year ago now. Now, the players themselves might prove to be good acquisitions, again, a long-term deal. I was Enzo, he's a great player, Enzo. He just needs to be in a better team for the moment. You can say that about many players. I think we purchased Gusto then and loaned him back. Gusto is, one of the best signings I can remember. We signed Noni. Noni might prove to be good value. I mean, we have to see about Mudryk. But the main issue was how we did it and how we just had that crazy dressing room, too many players. And even if they like the players that they purchased, the fact how we ended up with that squad, it wrote off the season. So that season was ruined by two things. The hiring of Graham Potter and the way we did business in January. Not necessarily individual signings, but the way that was done. Now, maybe to get Potter out of Brighton, we had to give him a long deal. What would we have done in the short term? Say, right, look, something's happened with Tuchel. It's not working. He's not willing to work with us. We need to sack him. Who do we bring in? They didn't have time to do their exhaustive interview process, and they just saw an opportunity with Potter. But they went too fast. They went too fast and went all in on him. Maybe they could have said, look, do you want to come and do an 18-month deal, and if you do well, we'll put you on a longer deal. But maybe he wouldn't have come for that. So I don't know what alternative there was, especially if we're going by the stories of just Tuchel had to go. So it's tricky, but it's a mistake regardless. When he's asking, do players like me? It's just super on Chelsea. So that was a mistake, and the transfer window was a mistake as well. And they seemingly learned from these two mistakes to a degree. So firstly, the January transfer window. We've just had a January transfer window, and you couldn't have a more opposite experience than the previous one. We had a few smart loans, recalls, and that was it. Kept the dressing room small. We recognised some players are coming back from injury. Thought, though we might want to spend money on a senior striker, which, by the way, also might be a lesson learned. Not just having children, having like one bit more of an experienced striker, or high profile striker. But they didn't want to get taken for a ride. Of course, Mudryk cost loads of money. Enzo cost loads of money. January transfers are tough. Like, right, we'll just learn from that experience. And maybe learning from just hiring Graham Potter too quickly. They did how long was this, again, quote, exhaustive interview process with Pochettino? It was months, bro. It went on forever, and they wanted to be sure. They wanted to be sure of, I guess, look, is this guy going to be a wet blanket like Graham Potter, or is he going to be able to, passionately get into the players and, make them all feel calm? I mean, obviously, Pochettino is multilingual, unlike Potter, so he can speak Spanish, he can speak French, I think. Do you know what I mean? So he can, as well as English, so he can speak to the squad more and, get into their heads a little bit. And he does. I know you might think at this point, well, Pochettino, final bottler, Tottenham, it's not very Chelsea, fine, but his demeanour, his that word, his aura is a little bit authoritative and commanding, therefore a bit more Chelsea. And they were like, well, this guy's going to work with us. He's going to work with us long term. He's going to, understand the project. He's not going to kick and scream. He's not going to demand us to sign a 34-year-old on 400k a week, which will make us fall foul of financial fair play, which, by the way, now is a very, very real thing. The Roman Abramovich days, if we were operating like that now, we'd be in trouble, dude. Do you know what I mean? So, Pochettino's willing to work with all that. And they see that as a learning from a mistake of hiring Potter in terms of how they hired Pochettino. And other than that, I feel like there's some good stuff that they're trying to do. Like I said, I've always wanted footballing directors. I've always wanted that. Again, you won't know if a footballing director or sporting director or technical director is successful until you've had years. It's not like a footballer. It's years, because they're building long-term projects, sporting directors. So you judge them on at least, the minimum 3 years. It's just the way it is. I mean, and so far they've got some hits, they've got some misses. But what's missing so far is this sort of winning culture and mentality that, like I said, it predates the new owners, but it's been massively intensified since them. And I think that's a symptom of them going, right, we need to rip it up and start again. All right, so should we talk? Let's talk about the manager then. So, learning from mistakes, bringing in Pochettino. Guys, I've always maintained the same position on this. I've always maintained the same position. And I'll reiterate now, I don't think Pochettino is the guy to bring Chelsea glory. I don't think he's this particular winner to instill a winning mentality in people. But despite that, and me maintaining my position, I still think he was an appropriate hire for Chelsea. I looked at where we were. So we've got all this young talent. He's notoriously good in his career of developing young talent and playing quite, brave football at times, although we haven't seen much of that recently. And from where we come from Potter and the Premier League table, and I know it sounds so gross to bring up now, but the numbers are way up from last year. We're a much better team this year than last year. I know we're 11th currently at time of recording, and it's hard to see that, but the numbers would dictate of how Chelsea play on all metrics. We're a lot better as a team. That just needs to be demonstrated in the league table now. I think he was a smart acquisition. He wasn't given a really long contract like Potter was. They were like, right, we ain't doing that again, because that was an expensive dismissal. I think we gave him, a 2-year deal, I think, rather than 7-year deal. And they were like, and we made sure this guy is a good figure to do it. He will be judged in the summer. He won't get sacked this season. unless the players revolt against him and, he fully loses the dressing room, he won't be sacked. But he rightly should be assessed in the summer. Again, it's just kind of, if anything, it's vindication of what I said. I don't think he's necessarily the guy to bring glory to Chelsea, but he's probably the guy to develop Chelsea in such a way. And I think there's been elements of that. There's been certainly an underperformance from him as well at times. And it's just been a really frustrating, because now we can talk about the players, I guess. It's been a really frustrating chain of events with injuries. I think genuinely, I think the Nkunku injury in pre-season was massive, because he could have like started the season as Chelsea's striker. We could have learnt quickly that Jackson offers a lot of value on the left. We could have had a front three of Palmer, Nkunku and Jackson early doors. Maybe if they'd score some more goals and the pressure would be off the people behind them, maybe we should have, I don't know, maybe in hindsight, sort of phased out Thiago Silva a little bit earlier. I don't know, playing, and obviously there's stuff that, Pochettino did wrong. I know he wanted to find a way to get Chilwell's runs in the box. He played him a left wing. There's a mistake for you. The Chilwell left wing experiment that, granted, didn't last long, but it was a massive mistake. And Colwill at left back. But we've learnt, Colwill's now playing centre back, Chilwell's playing left back, and we are better for it generally. But, Chukwuemeka was a loss, Lavia's a loss, Reece James, Wesley Fofana, I think, are two starters in the back line for Chelsea moving forwards. They're gone. And then obviously we had a weird situation with the goalkeeper. I mean, fortunately, Petrovic has looked very good and no one's really talking about it and all this, but it's really rough. But look, man, let's bring it on home. I don't want to talk for too long. I've spoken for quite a while here. Essentially, it's a long-standing problem, Chelsea underperforming domestically, and we've been grasping so tight onto this Chelsea winning culture that's slowly been fizzling out. And even in the sort of bridge generation of, like I said, Hazard and Kante, when, for a while, especially, or at least a year, they had JT in the dressing room, and then they didn't, and then, they leave, and Hazard goes to Madrid, and we sort of become this weird team where we're still buying super young talents on high wages. Werner, Ziyech wasn't young, Havertz, and it's just it was trying to emulate because it was still Roman Abramovich who was trying to emulate what he did with Hazard, with Havertz, and it's just you can't just pluck a Hazard out of anywhere anymore. Do you know what I mean? It was unsustainable, and I still think the Champions League, no matter, it wasn't luck, it was brilliant, but it was papering over cracks, I think, ultimately. And it's a culture rebuild from the ground up. Is Pochettino the guy to do it? I'm not so sure. Are the sporting directors going to build the appropriate team? I'm not so sure. But the ideas I sort of endorsed. Do you know what I mean? Because the alternative is unrealistic. Bringing in like these Mourinho types now to just want to buy 33-year-olds on high wages. That will put us in financial ruin now. We've committed to the model, and therefore we've got to see it out. And hopefully we'll learn from the mistakes. Anyway, what do you guys think? Comment down below. I had to re-record this a couple of times, so I'm sorry if I repeated certain elements I was thinking of in my head. You'll have to just forgive me about that. But yeah, hopefully this has been as therapeutic for you as it has been for me. And I will see you guys soon, hopefully. Peace.